these are all movie stars, and Jason Momoa is in the biggest movie on Netflix right now, and Zendaya is the coolest person on the planet, as I was going to say, as far as I'm concerned, but as far as anyone's concerned, so to get to have a big role in that, that's like you're pinching yourself, and the imposter syndrome you feel, that's what Paul would be feeling. So, not that I just dropped one of my rings. Sorry. And
when you drop the ring when you talk about imposter.
Yeah, exactly. That's a metaphor. That's fidgeting. I'm fidgeting. I got him back now.
It's not safe for you here.
I must not fear.
Timothy, with this film, you've made a lot of big movies, but nothing quite on the size and scale of production as Dune. So what did you learn about filmmaking at this scale that you didn't know before?
Well, that it's a marathon, not a sprint, which is something I thought I knew, but I really discovered on this. Because of the sensibility I think that Denis has on set, and also that his collaborators on set are from many of the films he's done prior, whether it's a huge film like Blade Runner or a smaller film like Polytechnique, that makes you feel like you're stepping into a machine, like a carnival that's already in motion. So it's more your responsibility to just kind of not mess up the turning of the wheel. And I was, I couldn't have been in better hands with Denis, but also this incredible group of actors, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, just everyone. So big gratitude for this.
There's such a strong family core at the center of Frank Herbert's story. So when it comes to the behind the scenes, though, translating to working with Timothy on his first major blockbuster epic, how did you find yourselves giving him advice?
I gave no advice to Timothy. I don't feel like I had to give advice. I think he brought the exquisiteness of art house for me. I mean, his films that he's done, also Oscars, the cast in general, put in the environment of this huge blockbuster movie, creates another dynamic for me as well.
He's so highly sensitive as an artist. He takes in everything. He takes in energy. He takes in interpersonal dynamics in a
knows
really
what he
intense
needs.
way. Yeah.
And asks for safety and demands in a lovely way a safety net for him to be able to access emotions and whatever he needs.
Yeah, it was very generous, and it was I love getting to know him.
He's phenomenal.
Well, if I'm not dead, you'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be. Come on! My son.
What convinced you that you could adapt Dune into the movie that you imagined when you were reading this as a teenager?
There's a very important scene in the movie called the Gumja bar scene, which is a test that the main character will go through right at the beginning to go through that process of having Timothée diving into that zone of pain and starting to transform himself in front of the camera. It was so impressive for me. And I knew I was dreaming to work with Timothée on this. But when I saw this transformation, I was like, whoa, we got the movie, right? It's going to be so exciting. That's going to be a ride, And I was so relieved and happy that I didn't fuck that up casting you.
Yeah, thank God, no.
What impressed you about the size and scale and scope of this production?
I think for me, it was all about Denis, if I'm honest, to begin with. His body of work is outstanding. I just wanted to work very much with him, but then starting to, invest further in what that would entail, to play Liet Kynes and all that comes with it. Then I started to look into the world of Dune, and it's such a huge, vast world that has so many dynasties within it, and so many realities, so many different social and political aspects to it and themes. Yes, I was in.
Fear is the mind killer. For the fear is gone.
One of the many themes in Dune is the concept of overcoming fear. What was the greatest fear that you each had to overcome for Dune?
I was afraid of not being able to be good enough, that I will not be able to please that teenager that was dreaming 35 years ago about this movie.
I felt a huge responsibility and respect for that, and principally to Denis, who is our leader on this, our chief. But because of his connection to the source material, and huge respect and admiration to the other versions, but because at least recently there hadn't been one for the fans, I felt that responsibility too, because I try to imagine what it would be to have a connection with something in your youth that wasn't niche because Dune was hugely popular and remains hugely popular, the source material, that I try to imagine, as a musical artist, Kid Cudi, that I love. And I imagine if I was older and I was in my 30s or 40s and there was a biopic being done on him and I was watching interviews with the young actor playing him, that I would want that young actor to know every bit of the backstory and even maybe stories that weren't true, but just all the lore associated. And you have a connection to source material like this book. And when it's so informative to people's youths like Denis, but many people I talked to, whether it's on the subway in New York or anywhere, and people that have stopped me on the street that want to talk about it, it's like, you don't want to get that wrong.
So what is the greatest fear that you had to overcome for Dune?
I guess that how to tell an emotional story about this man behind the beard. Yes, the man behind the beard. How do we get to the man behind the beard?
You can't let the beard act over you. I understand.
Exactly. I was walking into rooms beard first, so I had to really overcome that.
I was the woman behind the veil. That's what the film is about. No, what were your fears?
It was that.
Yeah.
He's a bit of an opaque character. He's also someone that is already coming into a story doomed. Yeah. And so how do you find the tension and the conflict in that and not let it just be this kind of repetitive thing? So I think that was maybe not a fear, but certainly something that I was very aware of, that challenge.
What was the greatest challenge for Lady Jessica, Rebecca?
I wanted to deliver something new for myself, to challenge myself. I'm not saying I don't find it hard to play a queen or a concubine or a don't. Or a soldier, or I know him too well. But it was the fine lines in between, because Jessica is very still and it's easy to want to overact emotions. And I think it was challenging and quite vulnerable to believe that what you were thinking was transported to the audience, at the same time wanting to leave you wanting more.
What do you make of the way Denis emphasized the power of all the women in this world?
I think Denis, as a smart man, understands that we need to create films that shift the view that we see, this sort of the social norm. The author of the book was ahead of his time when it came to putting women in the forefront. It still didn't put us in the rooms with the great leaders. Back in the days, even medieval times, the men were on the battlefield, the women were plotting the dynamics of the family, who marries whom to create a stronger bond for a stronger country. It's just how we view power.
The thing about how Frank has written women in his works, they're very strong. They're all very strong. And that's something we don't necessarily see in the average day-to-day cinematic experience. Denis said he wanted to have a much more diverse cast, balance. And for me personally, I think that's something that is of the utmost importance right now. We need to see a much more balanced set of group of people in front and behind the camera, 50-50. If Kynes had been played by a man this time round, nobody would be having those sorts of discussions. So it is 2021. Let's get used to it.
And let's, of course, also champion the fact that we have Zendaya, who is one of the most popular stars in all of Hollywood, playing Chani.
Wonderful human being. She's doing so well. I can't wait to see what happens because, of course, this is only part one. Actually, Chani is my daughter. She's so lovely and so generously spirited that, straight away I was like, you okay? You're cool.
For each of you, if you can quickly tell me, what is your favorite pop culture reference to Dune?
I think for me, I don't know if this is fair to say, and I always forget that these interviews go everywhere. So the creators of Halo or Gears of War could call me on this and say that I'm wrong. But those are two video games I grew up on, Halo and Gears of War, that I do think have a sort of dystopic future and end days. I'd be curious if they were directly inspired by Dune.
Quite honestly, it's got to be Star Wars. That for me was what I grew up with, running around in the playground. I was always Princess Leia.
The first Star Wars is a big tribute to Dune. George Lucas deeply loved the book and inspired himself.
I hope you don't get mad at me for this, but it's true. Every time Oscar Isaac would come on set, all the things, you'd be reenacting it.
Clearly Star Wars.
Clearly Star Wars.
Come on.
If
anyone's allowed to, I can say it.
This is only the beginning.